There comes a moment in every human life when you either rise or you repeat, and most people repeat not because they're incapable, but because they're distracted from the one thing that changes everything themselves. This is where the journey begins, not in a strategy, not in a plan, not in a book, a video, or a motivational quote. It begins in that quiet, brutally honest space where you finally face your own reflection and decide that enough is enough. Because success, real, sustainable, soul-altering success, is never an accident. It's a decision to stop running from yourself, a decision to stop outsourcing your power, a decision to stop waiting for someone to give you permission to live the life you already know you're capable of living. Most people are drowning in noise, opinions, expectations, pressure, comparison, guilt. They're pulled in 1,000 directions, trying to please everyone but themselves, and they wonder why their energy feels scattered, why their confidence feels fragile, why their life feels like it's on pause. Success doesn't grow in noise, it grows in clarity, and clarity comes from focusing inward before you try fixing anything outward. When you focus on yourself not selfishly, but responsibly, everything begins to shift. You start seeing your patterns instead of blaming circumstances. You start noticing your habits instead of blaming luck. You start recognizing your fears instead of pretending they don't exist. Focusing on yourself isn't isolation, it's alignment. It's gathering your power back into one place so you can finally use it to build something real. And this is where most people hesitate. Because focusing on yourself forces you to confront the truth about your discipline, your excuses, your procrastination, your hidden potential, your untapped capacity. It requires courage to face the parts of yourself that you've avoided for years. But it is the only path forward. Everything else is temporary motivation. This is transformation. So let this be the moment, not someday, not later, not when you feel ready. Now, let this be the moment you draw a line in the sand and step into a higher standard for your life. Because what comes next is the journey that changes everything, learning how focusing on yourself becomes the foundation of every breakthrough you will ever have. Every great transformation begins with a confrontation not with the world, but with the war happening inside you. Because the truth is, the biggest obstacles in your life have never been the economy, the people around you, your circumstances, or your past. The real battlefield has always been inside your mind, and most people lose that battle long before they ever take their first real step forward. There's a voice inside every human being that whispers doubt, fear, hesitation, and uncertainty. It shows up when you're about to level up, when you're on the edge of growth, when you can sense your next chapter calling. That voice isn't evil, it's ancient. It's the survival mechanism that was designed to protect you from danger. But in the modern world, that same mechanism becomes the very thing that paralyzes your potential. It convinces you to stay comfortable, stay predictable, stay small. The problem isn't that the voice exists. The problem is that you've been treating it like truth when it's really just a signal. The signal that you're stepping beyond your old identity. The signal that you're entering a territory where you need to evolve. Fear is not a stop sign, it's an invitation. And yet, for years, maybe even decades, you've been letting it dictate your choices, your goals, your relationships, your financial decisions, your dreams. You've been negotiating with your potential instead of acting on it. When you focus on yourself, you start to see this battle clearly. You start to understand your patterns, the way you talk yourself out of opportunities, the way you procrastinate on the things that matter, the way you cling to comfort while craving change. You begin to recognize that you're not fighting the world, you're fighting the limitations you've adopted as truth. And here's the breakthrough. Once you see the pattern, you can break it. Once you recognize the voice, you can challenge it. Once you understand the fear, you can move through it. Focusing on yourself isn't about becoming self-obsessed, it's about becoming self-aware. Awareness gives you power, power gives you choice, and choice gives you freedom. This is the beginning of taking your life back from the autopilot of old habits and inherited beliefs. Because the next step, and what we dive into now, is the foundation of all progress. the discipline to act even when you don't feel like it. Every great transformation begins with a confrontation not with the world, but with the war happening inside you. Because the truth is, the biggest obstacles in your life have never been the economy, the people around you, your circumstances, or your past. The real battlefield has always been inside your mind, and most people lose that battle long before they ever take their first real step forward. There's a voice inside every human being that whispers doubt, fear, hesitation, and uncertainty. It shows up when you're about to level up, when you're on the edge of growth, when you can sense your next chapter calling. That voice isn't evil, it's ancient. It's the survival mechanism that was designed to protect you from danger. But in the modern world, that same mechanism becomes the very thing that paralyzes your potential. It convinces you to stay comfortable, stay predictable, stay small. The problem isn't that the voice exists. The problem is that you've been treating it like truth when it's really just a signal. The signal that you're stepping beyond your old identity. The signal that you're entering a territory where you need to evolve. Fear is not a stop sign, it's an invitation. And yet, for years, maybe even decades, you've been letting it dictate your choices, your goals, your relationships, your financial decisions, your dreams. You've been negotiating with your potential instead of acting on it. When you focus on yourself, you start to see this battle clearly. You start to understand your patterns, the way you talk yourself out of opportunities, the way you procrastinate on the things that matter, the way you cling to comfort while craving change. You begin to recognize that you're not fighting the world, you're fighting the limitations you've adopted as truth. And here's the breakthrough. Once you see the pattern, you can break it. Once you recognize the voice, you can challenge it. Once you understand the fear, you can move through it. Focusing on yourself isn't about becoming self-obsessed, it's about becoming self-aware. Awareness gives you power. Power gives you choice, and choice gives you freedom. This is the beginning of taking your life back from the autopilot of old habits and inherited beliefs, because the next step, and what we dive into now, is the foundation of all progress, the discipline to act even when you don't feel like it. There comes a turning point in every transformation where you stop looking outward for reasons and start looking inward for responsibility. This is the moment where growth accelerates, where clarity sharpens, where your life stops being something that happens to you and becomes something that happens because of you. This is the power of radical ownership, the willingness to take complete responsibility for your actions, your habits, your thinking, your results, and yes, even your failures. Most people avoid ownership because it feels heavy. They think responsibility means blame. They think admitting their role means admitting they're weak or wrong or incapable. But ownership is not about self-blame, it's about self-liberation. It's the act of pulling your power back from everything you gave it to: excuses, circumstances, other people's choices, old stories, past events. When you own your life, you stop being a spectator and become the architect. Look at your patterns, look at the outcomes you produce, look at your relationships, your finances, your health, your emotional state. Every one of these areas is a mirror reflecting your standards, your decisions, and your actions. Ownership means recognizing that if something in your life is not where you want it to be, you have the authority and the obligation to change it, not someday, not when the conditions are perfect. Right now, ownership elevates every part of your existence because it removes the illusion of powerlessness. When you say, "This is my responsibility," you're also saying, "This is within my control." And once you recognize control, you unlock possibility. You realize you're not stuck, you're simply operating from an old identity, an old habit, an old belief system. Ownership is the key that breaks that identity open and exposes the potential waiting underneath. But here's the truth most people run from. Ownership requires honesty, ruthless honesty, the kind of honesty that forces you to admit where you've been settling, where you've been procrastinating, where you've been prioritizing comfort over growth. Where you've been hoping instead of executing, this honesty can sting, it can shake you, it can make you uncomfortable, but discomfort is the birthplace of transformation. And when you embrace ownership fully, something incredible happens. You stop waiting for life to change, and you start creating the change yourself. You develop a sense of inner strength that cannot be taken away. You rise, you rebuild, you become unshakable. There is a moment in your evolution when you realize the world wasn't holding you back. Your mindset was, not your environment, not your upbringing, not your limitations, not your past. It was the lens through which you interpreted every opportunity, every challenge, every setback, every possibility. Because nothing in your external world transforms until something in your internal world shifts first. Mindset is not just a collection of thoughts. It is the framework that shapes your behavior. It is the filter through which you interpret reality. It is the silent architect behind every choice you make. And most people walk through life unconsciously operating with a mindset built from fear, scarcity, comparison, and survival. They react instead of create. They defend instead of grow. They shrink instead of rise. But when you focus on yourself deeply and intentionally, you begin to realize that your mindset is not a fixed structure, it's clay. It can be reshaped, rebuilt, reprogrammed. You can choose beliefs that empower you instead of weaken you. You can choose interpretations that move you forward instead of hold you back. You can choose meaning that fuels your purpose instead of draining your power. Success is not about having the perfect conditions. It's about having the mindset that can thrive through imperfect conditions. It's about cultivating the mental toughness to stay committed when life throws friction, obstacles, and uncertainty your way. It's about replacing the old default questions, what if I fail, what if it goes wrong, with the questions that move you, what if this is my breakthrough, what if this is the moment everything changes. A powerful mindset doesn't eliminate fear, it reframes it. It doesn't deny hardship, it transforms it. It doesn't avoid discomfort, it moves through it with purpose. When your mindset is strong, you stop interpreting challenges as threats and start interpreting them as training. You stop taking rejection personally and start taking it as redirection. You stop seeing limits as walls and start seeing them as thresholds you're meant to cross. This shift is not overnight. It's built in the daily moments, the decisions, the habits, the self-talk, the focus. Every day you choose whether you're reinforcing the old identity or building the new one. And when you consciously choose growth, everything begins to change. Your energy, your relationships, your goals, your confidence, your capacity. Because once your mindset expands, you can never return to who you were before. And with that expansion comes the courage to take the uncomfortable steps, the steps that most people avoid but every champion embraces. There is a universal truth about growth that most people secretly know but rarely accept. Every breakthrough requires discomfort, not sometimes, not occasionally, not when it's convenient, every single time. The life you want is built on choices that stretch you, challenge you, expose you, and push you beyond the edges of who you've been. And yet, most people spend their lives running from the very experiences that would transform them. Comfort feels safe, comfort feels predictable, comfort feels familiar, and the human mind is wired to love familiarity even when it's keeping you small. You stay in the same routines, the same environments, the same habits, the same excuses not because they fulfill you, but because they numb the anxiety of change. But the truth is brutal and liberating at the same time. You cannot transform your life while staying comfortable. Discomfort is the training ground of greatness. It's the space where new standards are built. It's where emotional resilience is forged. It's where your self-belief grows stronger than your fear. Every moment of discomfort you willingly choose becomes a signal to your subconscious. I am capable of more. I am becoming more. You teach your mind to expand instead of contract. You build the muscle of courage, and courage is a muscle most people never strengthen. Think about the greatest shifts in your life. None of them came from staying where you were. They came from stepping into the unknown. They came from pushing past your hesitation, your insecurity, your doubt. They came from doing the thing that scared you, humbled you, or demanded more from you than you thought you had. Discomfort didn't break you, it built you. The difference between those who rise and those who stay stuck isn't talent, luck, or intelligence, it's willingness. The willingness to be uncomfortable longer than the average person. The willingness to feel the fear and do it anyway. The willingness to outgrow people, environments, and versions of yourself that no longer serve your next level. Discomfort sharpens your focus, it deepens your hunger, it fuels your evolution, and here's the paradox that only the committed understand. The more you choose discomfort on purpose, the less life needs to force discomfort on you. You grow before you have to, you evolve before you break, you lead yourself instead of waiting to be pushed, and once you start choosing discomfort as a strategy, not a punishment, you unlock a new level of strength, the perseverance to endure adversity without losing your fire. There comes a point on every growth journey where the world tests you, not because you're weak, not because you're unprepared, but because adversity is the pressure that reveals what you're truly made of. People think success is about momentum, about motivation, about excitement, but the real foundation is resilience. It's the ability to rise when things fall apart, to stay grounded when life shakes you, to hold your vision steady when everything around you tries to pull it away. Adversity isn't a detour, it's part of the path. It's the weight that strengthens you, the fire that hardens you, the storm that teaches you to anchor deeper. And when you're focused on yourself not selfishly, but intentionally, adversity stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like preparation. You begin to recognize patterns. You begin to understand that every challenge is shaping you for the next chapter you've been asking for. Most people collapse under adversity because they expect the journey to be smooth. They think progress means things should get easier, but growth doesn't make life easier, it makes you stronger. It builds the emotional endurance to handle pressure without breaking. It builds the mental clarity to stay committed when everything around you feels uncertain. It builds the spiritual depth to believe in your mission even when the results aren't visible yet. Resilience isn't about pretending you're fine. It's about refusing to surrender. It's about holding your ground when your old habits try to pull you back. It's about taking the next step even when your energy is low, your confidence is shaky, and the path ahead looks overwhelming. Resilience is forged in the moments when giving up feels easier than going on, and you choose to go on anyway. Every setback you've survived has made you wiser. Every obstacle you've overcome has made you stronger. Every hardship you've endured has carved depth into your character. Resilience teaches you something motivation never can. You are capable of surviving what once felt impossible. And once you know that, you stop fearing life's storms. You start walking through them with purpose, because here's the secret: adversity doesn't destroy your potential, it reveals it. And when you combine resilience with focus, discipline, and ownership, you become unstoppable. You stop breaking under pressure and start building under pressure. And when you learn to rise through adversity, a new challenge emerges, learning how your inner work affects your outer world. Here's a truth that most people never fully grasp. Personal growth is not isolated. When you focus on yourself, your mindset, your discipline, your courage, your resilience, it doesn't just change you. It changes everything around you. Your life is a reflection of your inner state. Every relationship, every opportunity, every challenge is influenced by who you are becoming, not by what you do or say superficially. Think about it. When you develop clarity, people notice. When you commit to your standards, your energy shifts and others respond differently. When you show discipline, you create an environment that elevates everyone in it. Growth is contagious. Your progress forces a ripple effect. Your family starts adapting, your team starts respecting the boundaries you set, your colleagues start taking you seriously, your friends start leaning on your strength, and even strangers pick up on the energy you radiate. The world responds to the person you are, not the promises you make. This is where self-focus becomes revolutionary, because most people spend all their energy trying to fix others, trying to control circumstances, or trying to chase results. And yet, they remain stuck because they are neglecting the one variable they actually control, themselves. When you change the internal world, the external world has no choice but to follow. People stop reacting to the old you. Opportunities begin to align, conversations deepen, your influence grows naturally without effort or manipulation, and here's the crucial insight: this ripple effect isn't just about relationships. It impacts your financial reality, your career trajectory, your health, and your ability to attract experiences that were once out of reach. A disciplined mind makes smarter decisions about money. A resilient character turns setbacks into strategies. A courageous heart takes risks that generate extraordinary outcomes. The inner work creates the outer results. One feeds the other in a continuous, compounding cycle. The challenge is staying committed. Growth is not about a single victory. It's about consistent alignment with your highest self. Every day you make choices that either reinforce your evolution or let it slip. Every action, every habit, every thought contributes to the ecosystem of your life. And when you commit fully to this process, you don't just change your own story, you influence everyone and everything that touches your orbit. When you focus on yourself, when you build discipline, resilience, and radical ownership, you don't just transform internally, you create the conditions for opportunity to show up. Most people think opportunity is luck. They think it's timing, connections, or being in the right place. But here's the reality: opportunity is the natural byproduct of personal mastery. When you operate from clarity, confidence, and consistency, doors open because you are finally ready to walk through them. Every breakthrough begins with preparation. Every success begins with alignment. When you know your standards, your values, and your capabilities, you begin to recognize opportunities that others overlook. You stop being distracted by trivialities. You stop chasing noise. You start moving toward what truly matters. And in that state, even challenges transform into opportunities. Problems become strategies. Failures become lessons. Setbacks become pivots. Your inner work sharpens your perception of the external world. Financial opportunities follow the same principle. When you take control of your habits and your mindset, you make decisions that grow your resources instead of eroding them. You invest in yourself before hoping the world invests in you. You negotiate from confidence instead of fear. You see ways to create value that others miss. And over time, this consistent, intentional approach compounds. Your choices multiply, your influence expands, your capacity to seize opportunities accelerates. Career growth, entrepreneurship, and relationships all work on the same formula. People are drawn to those who carry themselves with purpose, clarity, and strength. Leaders emerge naturally when they show consistent action under pressure. Partners, mentors, and collaborators appear when they see you operating from a place of integrity, vision, and capability. The opportunities aren't magic, they are mirrors reflecting your readiness to receive them. But here's the catch: readiness is not passive. You cannot expect doors to open while you remain inconsistent, reactive, or distracted. You must cultivate the habits, the focus, and the courage to move forward daily, even in uncertainty, because the universe or the system of life doesn't deliver results to the unprepared. It delivers to the persistent, the disciplined, the focused, the resilient. And when you consistently show up for yourself, something profound happens. You become unstoppable. You transform from someone waiting for life to happen to someone creating it. And that is the final lesson. We arrive at the ultimate payoff of focusing on yourself. The pinnacle of what all this inner work delivers here is the ultimate truth. Success is never about the applause, the money, or the recognition. Success is about who you become in the process of creating the life you want. When you focus on yourself, when you commit to discipline, ownership, resilience, and courage, you are not just building a life, you are building a legacy. Every choice, every habit, every action compounds into the story that only you can tell, the life only you can live, and the impact only you can make. The people who inspire, who leave their mark, who change the world, they aren't extraordinary because they avoided failure. They are extraordinary because they embraced themselves fully, faced the fear, endured the struggle, and refused to settle for anything less than their highest potential. They understood that the measure of success isn't in comparison to others, but in alignment with their values, their purpose, and their potential, and that begins with the focus on self. When you take responsibility for your life, you reclaim your power. When you cultivate discipline, you master your habits. When you build resilience, you endure adversity. When you embrace discomfort, you grow. When you shift your mindset, you unlock clarity. When you turn focus into opportunity, you create results. All of these pieces connect, forming a life that cannot be shaken by circumstance, criticism, or chaos. This is the life of true freedom, freedom to choose, freedom to create, freedom to impact. But here's the real kicker. This life doesn't require perfection. It requires consistency. It requires courage. It requires the willingness to stand in the fire when most would run. It requires knowing that every setback is training, every challenge is shaping you, and every day is an opportunity to level up. Focus on yourself first, and the world around you begins to catch up. Focus on yourself first, and you become the person who commands respect, opportunity, and influence naturally. Focus on yourself first, and you step into your true potential. So, the challenge I leave with you is simple but profound. Stop waiting, stop blaming, stop hoping for external validation. Decide today to focus on your growth, your mastery, and your power. Step into discomfort. Own your life, build resilience, transform your mindset, create opportunities, and live a life that will not just be remembered, but will inspire others to rise as well.